You ever notice how your mind behaves like a cheap TV stuck between channels? Static, flashing images, random voices, and you call this thinking. You wake up already overwhelmed, not because life is hard, but because your brain starts sprinting before you even open your eyes. What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if I mess up? As if the universe is sitting on the edge of its seat waiting for your daily performance. Let me tell you something cruel but necessary. No one is watching you as closely as you watch yourself. Most people are too busy surviving their own internal circus. But your mind? It wants drama. It wants noise. It wants chaos. It's addicted to overthinking the same way some people are addicted to caffeine. Except at least coffee makes you productive. And the funniest part? You confuse this constant mental noise with being deep, as if torturing yourself counts as philosophical depth. Here's the truth you won't like. Overthinking doesn't make you wise. It makes you exhausted. Real thinking, the kind that actually changes your life, is quiet, deliberate, almost boring. It's a samurai sharpening his blade in silence, not a guy screaming at himself in the shower, replaying conversations from 2018. But you wake up and immediately sprint in a mental warfare. You fight battles that don't exist. You argue with people who aren't in the room. You lose sleep over scenarios that will never happen. And then you wonder why life feels heavy. Your mind isn't your enemy, but right now, it's a terrible ruler. And until you learn how to tame it, you'll keep mistaking noise for thought, panic for intuition, and fear for intelligence. This is where everything begins. Not with motivation, not with discipline, not with grind set, but with the uncomfortable realization that your mind is lying to you and you believe it your entire life. There's a story, half legend, half psychological case study, about a samurai named Kojiro. Kojiro wasn't weak. He wasn't unskilled. He wasn't afraid of blood or blades or enemies twice his size. He could slice a falling leaf in half before it touched the ground. A prodigy, a monster, a perfectionist. But there was one thing Kojiro could never defeat: his own mind. Before every duel, he rehearsed disaster. What if he's faster? What if my foot slips? What if I hesitate? What if I die looking like an idiot? He would sharpen his sword for hours, not because it needed sharpening, but because he wasn't sharpening himself. His enemies didn't intimidate him. His thoughts did. One day, his master watched him pacing before a duel, sweating, trembling, whispering strategies to himself like a mad poet. And the master asked, "Kojiro, who are you fighting out there?" Kojiro answered, "My opponent." The master shook his head. "No, you're fighting the shadow your mind invented. And you'll lose because shadows don't die." The duel began, and just like his master predicted, Kojiro wasn't defeated by the blade in front of him. He was defeated by the fear behind him. His opponent didn't beat him. Kojiro beat himself before the fight even started. Here's the uncomfortable truth of the story. Most people are Kojiro. Your life is not hard. Your mind is. Your battles aren't real. Your thoughts are. You're not exhausted because life demands too much. You're exhausted because your mind refuses to shut up. Self-sabotage isn't a decision. It's a habit, a mental routine, a loop. And Kojiro teaches us something brutal. Your mind will destroy you long before the world even gets the chance. But there's something else this story teaches, something quieter, almost invisible. Kojiro's master didn't say, "Fight harder." He didn't say, "Be stronger." He didn't say, "Focus." He said, "The enemy isn't outside. It's the story you keep telling yourself." And until you rewrite that story, every fight, every goal, every relationship, every dream will end the same way Kojiro's duel ended. You losing to a foe that only exists inside your skull. Years after Kojiro's defeat, a wandering monk visited the same village. He heard the story of the samurai who lost a battle against his own mind, and he laughed. Not out of mockery, out of recognition. Humans, he said, are the only creatures arrogant enough to believe they must earn their own worth. And that's how the delusion of productivity begins. Because productivity isn't just a schedule. It's a religion. You wake up, guilt already sitting on your chest like a tax collector. You check your phone, Not because you want to, but because your brain demands a hit of urgency to feel alive. You open your to-do list. Meaningless tasks disguised as purpose. You're not living. You're clocking in. But here's the darkest part. You don't even know who you're trying to impress. Your boss? A stranger on Instagram? Your parents? A version of yourself who never existed? The monk sat with villagers around a fire and told them, a man once ran 30 miles a day to prove he wasn't lazy. He died at 50 running, and the world didn't clap. The world didn't care. The world didn't even notice. That is productivity's ultimate trick. It convinces you that you're only valuable when you're exhausted. You check your email at midnight. You answer messages you should have ignored. You say yes when every cell in your body whispers no. And when you burn out, they don't call it abuse. They call it lack of resilience. Kojiro lost a duel because he tried too hard to win. Modern people lose their peace for the same reason. We're grinding ourselves into dust. Not because we must, but because we're terrified of what happens when we stop. Silence scares us. Rest feels illegal. Stillness feels like failure. And the monk ended with something nobody expected. A man who is always productive is not living. He is simply avoiding himself. When a monk left the village, he traveled north, where he met a young craftsman named Taro. Taro carved wooden masks, not for money, not for fame, just because the sound of the blade sliding through would calm the storm inside his head. But everyone around him had the same question. Why don't you turn this into a business? At first, he laughed it off. Then he started doubting. Then he started believing them. That's the curse of modern passion. The moment you enjoy something, the world demands that you monetize it. Soon, Taro wasn't carving for peace. He was carving for customers. Deadlines replaced silence. Orders replaced inspiration. Stress replaced joy. The thing that once healed him, now it drained him. And the monk told him what no one else dared to say. Be careful. The moment they convince you that everything must be productive, joy becomes labor, and you forget why you were ever alive. Passion used to mean something sacred, the flame that kept your inner world warm. But now, passion is a spreadsheet, a brand, a logo, a lesson you can sell for $29.99. We used to do things because they made us feel human. Now we do them to prove we're not falling behind. Taro asked, but is it wrong to want purpose? The monk shook his head. Purpose is beautiful, but passion is not a job. It's a relationship. And when you force a relationship to pay your bills, it eventually breaks. Kojiro lost his duel. Modern people lose their passions the same way, by turning everything sacred into a performance. The monk left Taro with one final lesson, the kind that stays in your chest for years. Not everything you love must become a ladder. Some things should stay as ground, the place where you rest. There was a time when resting was normal. People worked when the sun rose, stopped when it set, and the world didn't collapse because someone took a breath. But somewhere along the road to the 21st century, rest became suspicious. If you pause, you're lazy. If you slow down, you're unmotivated. If you sleep, you're falling behind. And that's why modern people rest like thieves, quietly, guiltily looking over their shoulder, as if someone might catch them doing nothing. But the monk knew a truth older than ambition. A mind that never stops eventually breaks. That's why warriors meditated before battle. That's why Musashi spent hours in silence between duels. That's why every ancient tradition, from Stoics to Zen monks, taught one simple law. Rest is part of discipline, not the absence of it. When the monk reached the next village, he met a young woman named Hannah, who looked exhausted in a way no sleep could fix. She told him she hadn't taken a single day off in months. Why? The monk asked. Because if I stop, she said, the world moves on without me. And the monk answered gently, it already moves without you. Rest anyway. Hannah cried, not because she was sad, but because someone finally gave her permission to be human. We talk about burnout as if it's a surprise, as if our minds were designed to survive. Notifications, deadlines, expectations, comparisons, noise, and the endless pressure to be productive. But here is the silent truth. Your body always sends warnings. You're just too busy to listen. Rest feels like rebellion because the world profits from your exhaustion. A tired mind consumes more. A tired soul compares more. A tired heart obeys more. Musashi didn't rest to escape life. He rested to stay sharp enough to face it. And the monk left Hannah with a lesson everyone in the modern world secretly needs. Rest is not a reward, it is a requirement. Even mountains rest. They erode slowly, gently, without rushing. When people imagine discipline, they picture something loud. Waking up at 5 a.m., cold plunges, gym selfies, hustle quotes, never quit. But the monk knew a different kind of discipline. The quiet one, the invisible one, the one no one claps for. And it started with a boy named Run, who lived at the edge of the temple grounds. Run wanted to be a warrior. He trained every day with intensity. Big swings, loud breaths, dramatic movements he believed looked powerful. But despite all the noise, he never improved. One morning, the monk approached him and asked, "Why do you shout when you practice?" Rin wiped sweat from his forehead. "To show my strength." The monk shook his head gently. Strength doesn't need announcement. Discipline doesn't need an audience. He took Rin inside the temple, where an old wooden bucket filled with water sat on the floor. "Hit the surface," the monk said. Rin struck the water with force. It splashed everywhere, chaotic, uncontrolled. "Again," said the monk. But softly, Rin barely touched the surface. This time the water rippled outward, smooth and steady. "That," the monk said, "is discipline." Then he explained, "Real discipline is subtle, unseen, unperformed. It's the choice you make when nobody is watching." Modern society celebrates the loud kind. Posting progress, showing results, broadcasting effort. But the discipline that changes your life is private. Reading when no one knows you're reading. Practicing when no one praises you. Improving when no one is clapping. Saying no to distractions no one sees. Choosing focus over noise, quietly. The monk told Run, "The world rewards what is visible, but your life is shaped by what is hidden." Musashi trained alone for years. No applause, no validation, no audience. Just repetition, silence, focus. That's why he became unstoppable. Not because he was talented, but because he mastered the discipline the world never sees. Rin didn't become stronger that day. He became quieter, and that made all the difference. Because the truth is harsh but simple. If your discipline requires witnesses, it's not discipline, it's performance. Most people think pain is a punishment. The monk thought the opposite. Pain, he said, is the most honest teacher in existence. But the students never believed him. Until the story of Taro, the young monk who hated discomfort more than anything. Taro was smart, sharp, disciplined, but only when things were easy. Whenever training became difficult, he'd step back. Whenever meditation became uncomfortable, he'd shift, sigh, and escape into his thoughts. One day, during sword practice, Taro injured his hand slightly. Nothing serious, just a sting. But he stopped immediately and said, "I can't continue today. I need to rest." The monk looked at him for a long, heavy moment. Then he said, "Pain is not here to stop you. Pain is here to reveal you." The next morning, he took Taro to the tallest hill behind the temple. The climb was brutal, steep, uneven, cold wind cutting their skin. Taro complained the entire way. "My legs hurt. My hands hurt. My back hurts. Why do we have to climb this?" The monk only answered once. "Because this is where your excuses die." At the top of the hill, they sat in the freezing wind, while Taro rubbed his sore muscles and shivered. The monk pointed at the village below. People working, carrying loads, living life. "Look at them," he said. "They all hurt. They just don't use pain as a hiding place." Taro was silent. The monk continued. "There are two kinds of pain. The pain that breaks you, and the pain that builds you. You experience the first one when you run from the second." Taro looked confused. So the monk explained. The pain of discipline, the pain of repetition, the pain of failure, the pain of starting over, the pain of focus, the pain of saying no, the pain of silence, the pain of not being understood, the pain of discomfort, the pain of effort. These are the pains that build you. But there is another pain: regret, wasted time, lost potential, self-betrayal, the agony of "I could have been more." These destroy you. The monk leaned forward and whispered, "If you avoid the pain of growth, you earn the pain of staying the same." That was the moment Taro finally understood. Pain wasn't the enemy. Pain was the compass. He had been running from the very thing that was trying to strengthen him. The world today does the same. Everyone wants improvement without discomfort, strength without strain, wisdom without mistakes, peace without discipline. But Musashi knew better. Every breakthrough in his life came wrapped in pain. Not glamorous pain, not romantic pain, not Instagram pain, real pain, private pain, transformational pain. Because pain is truth, and truth is what sharpens you. At the top of the hill, with the wind slicing across their faces, Taro finally whispered, "I understand." The monk smiled. "No," he said, "you don't understand yet, but you're beginning to."